name is Paula Dunn and welcome to the Limited Edition Leadership Show. Today, I would love to introduce you to Will Wheeler, who is the founder and CEO of the Dyslexic Evolution. Hi, Will.
Paula, how are you today?
I'm well. I'm very well, thank you. Now, just a little bit about Will. He specifically works with dyslexic leaders and entrepreneurs, ranging from high school all the way through to organisations. So it's really exciting to have Will on the show today, and especially during these turbulent times and what's happening with teenagers and being homeschooled. So I really wanted Will to come on as our dyslexic expert today to talk about some of the challenges and maybe helping teens and parents overcome some of these obstacles to make sure that their teens are actually thriving during this time. So thank you, Will, for your time.
Oh, anything for you, Paula. It's always a pleasure.
I love talking to Will. I just have a great time with him. So Will, what is currently happening in the world of dyslexia, especially during this time of isolation and homeschooling?
Yeah, look, it's definitely interesting times, and I think a big thing as well is that no one really prepared for this. So we're really, it's very trial and error for not just dyslexic people, but for everyone, because we've been pretty much just thrown in the deep end and said, here you go, let's learn to swim. So yeah, it's definitely been interesting times, and it's been interesting because I'm seeing a lot of stuff on, social media and all that about how, you can best support people or even dyslexic kids in this type of environment. So, there has been a lot of stuff going on. But personally, I think sometimes these types of things can sometimes be a blessing in disguise. It's just finding that type of blessing and really grasping it and really taking it by the throat, I suppose, and really making something of that.
Yeah, no. So for those of us who aren't really familiar with what dyslexia, the difference between dyslexic and non-dyslexic people, how does that impact their learning capabilities in this time of chaos?
Yeah. So for people who don't know much about it, with dyslexia, a common thing is like a lot of people struggle to read and write, but there's a lot of big stuff. So there's other stuff based around it in regards to learning different types of information. So, a big thing I struggle with is how information is presented to me. So, when I was in school, it was really difficult to really understand what was going on because the way it was taught, I just didn't get it. So, what I've realized over the years, especially building my career and developing and all that, is that I actually learn differently and I've found different ways to learn, which has helped me to excel just as much, if not more, than what other people may progress in their careers. Now, when we're going to school and everything that's going on at the moment, yes, that could be a bit of a disruption. And I suppose, for parents as well, they're probably really struggling to think, okay, normally our son or daughter has special needs classes. How are we able to facilitate that at home and all those different things there? So I think a big thing is really trying to find those best methods and really trying to adapt that and get into some type of routine with the student or the teenager, whoever that might be.
No, that's great, because there is a misconception of people thinking that if you're dyslexic, you're actually dumb, but it's not really the case, is it?
Yeah, no, not at all. Like, this is the thing. Like, I think a big thing is what we forget is that in schools, especially, is a lot of the time they're only teaching one way. And that one way doesn't fit into the needs of dyslexic kids, even adults as well. Once you go out of school, that doesn't mean you don't have dyslexia anymore. It's a lifelong thing and you'll never get rid of it. So, being able to have different methods of learning definitely helps. And really, this is a real big problem, especially in the school system, is that I was only speaking about this with someone yesterday, is that the way we are learning is still the same as when, you know, I was in school, when my mother and father were in school. It just hasn't changed, you know. But now we're starting to see that, you know, there are different types of schools popping up. So, for example, we've got in the UK, and I think there was one has started in Perth over in Western Australia, that, you know, to help kids who maybe learn differently, there's actually schools popping up that are adapting to their needs. So
no, that's really fantastic.
It's interesting times.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think I like to see what's happening in the world today as an opportunity rather than an obstacle, because it's actually forced the education system to actually get with the program now. You know, go online. I mean, they're all, you know, since being in the space myself, I've seen a lot of the politics that has been going on about trying to reform, comparing, say, for example, the Singapore education system and trying to sort of map that across to the Australian system. And, you know, even though in theory it sounds really awesome what Singapore is doing, but again, there's a difference in culture over there compared to here. Yeah,
totally.
You know, again, Singapore has that sort of Chinese sort of culture where it's very hierarchical and very like whatever said, you know, whatever the top says goes, and it goes down. Whereas here it's a bit more like egalitarian, and so, you know, again, we don't really respect people who are in leadership unless, you know, just like that. It's a matter of whether they deserve respect. So,
well, that's the thing. I think a big thing what we've got, you know, a big problem maybe here in Australia is our culture, for starters. And then I think that especially in the school system is that, you know, you do have a lot of, you know, especially in the school system, you've got people who have been teaching for 30 plus years. So the whole thing of developing some new type of program and implementing that can be very difficult, because a big problem is a lot of people are afraid of change. If you've been teaching one way for the past 30 years, you're probably coming to the end of your career life. You might be thinking about retiring. So why would you want to be changing, which can then make it very difficult for everyone else trying to develop this new way of learning.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because with some of the schools that I've worked with, and, you know, especially when there's been a change of leadership position, so change of principal, you know, and obviously the principal that comes in is very excited, and they're innovative, and they want to create change and all that sort of thing. And then they have the struggle, because they've got the two camps. They might have the new graduates and the fairly, you know, new teachers that are all for the change and creating something new. And then you've got the ones that have been in the game for about 30 years, as you say, and they're being very resistant and very cautious, because, you know, again, it's human nature. We like stability. We don't want to change the status quo. And so then what I see is, when I come in, I see the conflicts that's arising on a leadership level and a teacher level, which filters down to the students and causes that unnecessary stress and anxiety and overwhelm. So even though I specifically work with teenagers in the school system, but it also, I can't just work with them specifically alone in isolation when I don't know what's happening. You know, if the leadership team and the teachers underneath are not in sync, and
well, their environment plays a huge role in that, you know. So I think, you know, you have to be observant of what's going around. You know, because teachers and all that, principals, they do play a huge role in the development of young people growing up, you know. So, you know, and you're seeing a lot of schools on, you know, the news at the moment for maybe some of the wrong reasons. And you're looking at a lot of the people from the top there, and they're really, you know, they're building a culture based around this old style, which just isn't working now. You know, so they are, you know, they're having to get rid of these people, and they're not adapting. So it's very interesting.
Interesting time. So with the teens, so what actions can teens take to minimise the impact of homeschooling on their learning styles?
Yeah, look, it really depends on, you know, the teen themselves, because let's take someone like me when I was a teen, for example. So, you know, I was a very lost type of teen. You know, my parents, they had a commercial business. So, you know, they were never home a lot of the time. So it was very hard for me to try and keep on track or be disciplined enough to be on track there. So, you know, and look, my parents were great, or they still are great parents. But, you know, it was very difficult because I didn't have any structure there. So, you know, I think a big thing, especially with teens, and that your parents probably still do play a big role, especially when you're working and living from home in isolation. All right, structure and routine is still going to play a big role. You know, we could easily say, okay, it's all right, just sleep in, and, you know, young teens can sleep till about 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if I'm thinking back to when I was a teen.
Yeah, tell me about it.
You know, so having structure there is going to be vital. Getting them to, you know, get into the habits of, still attending school, even if it's online, it still plays a huge role there. So, you know, having activities there. But what we got to probably think about as well is what extracurricular activities are in place there. So are they, you know, because especially, and it really depends on the kid themselves, on the teenager, sorry, how are they, what are they doing? What are they working towards? Because I think a big thing, especially with dyslexic teenagers, depending where they are at in their life, in their schooling career, in their schooling life, you know, their mental health, all that type of stuff. What are they working towards? I know for myself, it was very difficult because I had no idea what I was working towards. And it can sometimes be very difficult. So is this a time where we need to be developing some, and I'm probably more thinking about from about grade 10 onwards, how are we able to try and help develop these kids? So are we finding some type of career path for them that, you know, maybe they may not do that well in school, but what type of career path can they take once they've finished school there?
No, that's great. So is that something you help dyslexic teens with?
Yeah, definitely, because I think a big thing for myself, and this is why I'm so passionate about it, was a big thing when I was at school, and I don't know if it's still like this, I was told that if I didn't do well in school, if I didn't get good marks, I'd be nothing. I wouldn't have any chance of doing anything. Now, for me, you know, over the years, well, you know, when I first finished school, I was sort of like, okay, because I failed. I got the lowest mark possible. And for me, I was like, okay, well, that means I'm going to be nothing in life now. So you can imagine my self-esteem went straight down. I had no confidence. To think that I would start a business like what I'm doing today, that was no way would have I have ever thought that. But what I learned over the years was that there's actually different pathways you can take to be able to get to something to then build from that. So really having an understanding that, hey, look, we may not do that well in school, okay, because of maybe different things, not because of you as yourself as a person. It could be because of, you know, you're being taught the wrong way compared to, say, how you should be learning, all those types of things, and having some type of direction to take. So once you leave school, you can start like just building on your career. Because for me, it was just like, nah, not going to be anything. And I wasted probably the first 10 years out of school because I just had no career direction or goals. So a lot of the time, that's what I'll be working with kids. So once they finish school, they've got some type of direction to take. So, you know, building their confidence and, you know, helping them to develop in the direction they want to take before they actually finish school. So it's sort of planning for once they finish school, not just going, okay, let's see how you go with marks and that. Then we'll find out, you know. So it's sort of planning before.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that with the dyslexia. See, for me, I didn't have a learning disability, but I had a physical disability. So, as you know, I was born with a bilateral cleft lip and palate, and so I was bullied all through primary school.
Totally.
And because I was bullied all through primary school and living on a daily basis in fear, right? Totally. So having the anxiety, I never took anything in.
Totally.
I found learning difficult. I found grasping concepts difficult. And what made matters worse was that the teachers blamed me for thinking that I was dumb and putting me in special classes. So for slow learners for maths and English. So I grew up with the notion that I was dumb, and I didn't even, and it was the environment and the context in which, so like yourself, I see what's going on with the teens with their lack of confidence in their identity and all of that, because I went through that myself, like you've gone through that yourself. And so for me, when working with teens, I don't like to write anyone off. And I have
no way.
No. Whereas, you have this proximity bias when you're a teacher or a parent or something, because your child or your students, you think so well in that context, in that environment. So you go, oh, well, little Johnny's never going to be like this. He's not outgoing and outspoken. He's pretty quiet, so he's always going to be like this. So then now, I see it with my sister as well, and how she puts her kids in certain boxes as well. Yeah. And it's natural, it's normal that people do that, because we like to define people because it gives us that sense of control and certainty. And safety. Totally. So so your point, my point was that so it's like two polar opposites. It's saying that you have some internal learning difficulty within, or is it the external environment? And I think both what I've gone through and what you've gone through, it's really environment dictates performance, because totally. It's the fact that for me, it wasn't until I was placed into an all-girls private school that I was able to start to flourish and go and get better. But I had a lot of work to do. It wasn't just learning the current concepts that everyone else was learning, but was trying to keep relearn everything that I didn't understand, to get to that point. Yeah. And I remember too, when I was in like senior years of high school, that I was told too that, growing up, that I wouldn't amount to much. Not that my parents said that, but it was like other people, right? Other people. Yeah, totally. Yeah. And so I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I was overly critical, and I kept saying, if I don't get into uni, my life is over. And I had an exit strategy. So I remember that if I didn't get the results that I wanted to get into university, I was going to kill myself. So I was at that extreme. Totally. I totally get it. Yeah. Because you're under so much pressure. Yeah. Because for me, I wrapped my identity, because my looks were not normal and mainstream. Then I wrapped my identity around my career, around my grades. And so it was like do or die. And we all do that. We all wrap our identity around something. And then when it becomes all unraveled, like now with the coronavirus and everyone's in a pandemic and they're in a panic mode and buying toilet paper because they've relied on the external environment to dictate their stability and their certainty in life. So I mean, to be quite honest, it's I do feel that it is the environment that dictates performance, and it's not the individual itself. It is. And I think a big thing, and this is why, and especially in my book that I'm about to release shortly, it's really exciting. Tell us more on that. Okay, so it's the book. So it's called The Book of Dyslexic Motivation and Pitches, and it's pretty much starts off with me about my life and, my struggle through school and, the environment I was in and how teachers bullied me. So everything we've just been talking about, but then it takes you through the journey of how I was able to develop. And then I share a lot of things about, what we can potentially do and to be able to grow in our careers if we may not have done so well in, our grades or whatever that is, right? Now, a big part of that is, going and building, that brand, or even building yourself to be recognized by the right people who are going to help you to identify the right environment to build your career in. Because once you were in that correct environment,
that's when real good things within your career are going to start to happen. You're going to start to develop more. And when you start to develop more, your confidence boosts. And once your confidence boosts, there's really no stopping you, because you've really blocked out the naysayers, and then you're able to go, all right, sweet, let's make this happen. And all the problems that used to be there no longer exist, because, you know, yeah, there's probably parts where it's all about you, because, you know, you've got to be able to develop yourself, but also too, you see the other awesome people around you who boost you and help you to develop as that leader, that you can influence other people as well. You know, so it's definitely vital. The environment is key.
That's awesome. Fantastic. So if parents or educators or teens themselves want to learn more about what you do, where can people find you?
Yeah, so if you visit the dyslexicevolution.com, or, you know, follow or like us on our social media platforms. So we're on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Can't think of too many other ones, or subscribe to our website, obviously. There's definitely lots of information there that we're constantly sharing all the time. So, you know, it should be pretty easy to find us there, and we'd be more than happy to chat.
Oh, that's fantastic. Look, it's been a real pleasure to have you on the show today. And I think it's been and thank you for sharing such a candid discussion on your experience at being a dyslexic, and how you're helping our future generation of teens overcome their dyslexia to live a life without limits.
Yeah, nice.
So I love it. I love it. So thank you, Will, for being on the show today.
Thank you, Paula. It's always a pleasure when I'm speaking with you, Paula.
Fantastic. And thank you all for tuning in today. If you really enjoyed this segment, please like and share it amongst your connections, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So I'll leave you all for today, and make sure to be you, have courage, and live life without limits.